can one person change the conscience of an organization? Well, I want to share with you my belief on this topic by sharing the story of how I was once that one person. You want to hear it? Let's get it. Wondered whether or not one person can change the conscience of an entire organization? Though it seems impossible, my belief is that it isn't. Why? Because I've actually been that one person. And by the end of this video, you'll not only know the story of how I did it, but hopefully have a bit of inspiration and knowing that you can do it too. So let me just preface this by sharing what I see the meaning of the conscience of an organization to be. You know, as we think about our own conscience, honestly, only thing I can picture is Jiminy Cricket and a top hat. But as we think about our own conscience, it's that intuition, that thing that guides us, that's usually rooted in our core beliefs and our values, that essence of what we truly believe as we make our way through the world. And so I liken that to the conscience of an organization. It's the core beliefs, the values that actually drive that culture. As the organization moves forward in its business deliverables, it's the guiding principles, those values, and the core beliefs that are held by a critical mass of individuals that comprise that organization. So with that said, let me tell you my story on how I was that one person that made significant impact in changing the core value and belief within an organization. So I'm a chemical engineer by trade. I went to Georgia Tech. I'm from Metro Atlanta originally, so I spent my years in university at Georgia Tech there in Atlanta. And after I graduated, I went to work in corporate America. I spent 15 years working there. It was a great, awesome career, but it was one that was riddled with going through a lot of change, a lot of shift, a lot of disruption. Probably the biggest, most painful one was through acquisitions. The very first acquisition that I went through, I was working in a very large organization that had acquired a different business. And it was a multi-billion-dollar acquisition, so it was a huge deal. Now, upon transferring, I was told I was being brought into that new recently acquired business to not only continue delivering breakthrough innovation, I was working in research and development at the time, but also to help integrate parent company tools and processes throughout that technical community. But I was pretty naive in thinking that it was going to be like work I'd done before in the past. You know, I consider myself like a rock star. You know, I create tools, I bring them to life. I'd already been working for the company for about 3.5, 4 years, and so I just assumed it was going to be a lot of the same. But my goodness, when I got into that new organization, it was like I had quit the company that I joined 4 years ago and started working for a completely different company. The culture was completely different. The language that they use, their common behaviors, their manners of speaking, it was just completely different, all those cultural norms. And on top of that, despite all my best intentions of making sure those new tools and processes were working, people were using them, I will say that that effort was met with great adversity. Right? They were not so keen to pick up on those processes. On top of that, I discovered one day that a colleague of mine had shared all of my results, my data, all of my recommendations and conclusions up to senior leadership, not only without me being in the room, but without even acknowledging that it was all my work. This was a very difficult time for me. I felt like I was in this us versus them culture, constantly facing a brick wall. All of my efforts, all of my energy, all of the value that I could see myself bringing to this organization was just thwarted, was met with so much resistance. And it was very, very challenging. And I got to the point where nearly every day I felt like quitting, straight up. I felt like getting up out of my chair, walking out the door, and never coming back. Maybe you felt that way from time to time. Maybe you're even feeling that way right now. Well, I decided to see all of this frustration, all of the stress that I was experiencing as an invitation to an opportunity to learn, to grow. Myself as a leader, as a contributor within that business, within that industry, as well as an opportunity to make an impact in that organization. So I started to just seek to understand my colleagues. And I was inspired to write some intercompany articles, some papers that are published internal to that organization, papers that I call my diaries. And the whole point was just to share where I thought there was room to improve and where I thought there was a lot of strength that needed to get reapplied. And for one of those articles, I interviewed so many of my working team colleagues, including the one that I thought wronged me. And I asked them questions like, what are you most proud of? And how do you think your functional expertise can not only explode results in this business, but also other businesses around the parent company? And in having these conversations, I actually began to discover the differences in cultural norms across the two different companies. And come to find out, that guy that had shared my results wasn't acting maliciously. They were just abiding by a different set of cultural norms. And in having these conversations, writing these reports, it was so healing and eye-opening for me. And when I published them out, I kind of crossed my fingers when I published them out, but I really just wanted one person. I wanted one person to read them and feel the healing that I felt, because it really was incredible. It really helped me to re-engage in my work. And do you know what happened? It was nuts. It was crazy what happened. So that article, the one with all the interviews, became in the top 3 most widely read in the entire company. Not just that organization, but the company, for several weeks in a row. I think when it was all said and done, it had like over 6,000 reads. And up until this point, I was lucky if I got like 100 reads on one of my reports, even though I felt they were wonderful and, very thorough. But this one was just a standout hit. I had colleagues stopping me in the hallway, thanking me for writing the reports, saying how my words had helped nurture much needed conversation and dialogue between them and their working team colleagues. But the best part of all of this is that I went to a women's networking event, and we'd invited the president of that organization in to speak with us. And during his talk, he pointed me out in front of everybody. He was like, "You're Cassandra, right?" And of course, I'm looking at this dude like a deer in headlights. I had no idea he knew who I was. He was like, "You're Cassandra, right?" He said, "I want to thank you for writing those reports." He said, "Although there were a couple points I didn't necessarily agree with," he said, "I want to thank you for the courage it took to write them." And then he got really honest with me and the rest of the group. He said their most glaring mistake in the acquisition and the integration was not recognizing and fully embracing the differences in cultural norms across those two different companies. But he said it was perspectives like mine that was helping him and his senior leadership team understand where the tension points lied, so that they could create plans to address them. As one employee, as one individual, female, black, queer engineer, recent hire, I'd effectively influence the conscience of that organization, its core values, its belief, inviting others, inspiring others to seek first to understand those cultural dynamics, and that ultimately we were all in it together. We all wanted to move the business forward, wanting to add our value, our authenticity to make that happen. And I slowly started seeing changes in my teams and eventually across the whole organization. Now, of course, it took a couple years to actually see that momentum, but in large part, it was my action, me choosing to step into that moment of opportunity, choosing how I would show up, how I would respond to all of these, what I call signal emotions, as I was going through that event. So because of that experience, I firmly believe that through the power of choice, you can inspire and influence another. That individual can then inspire and influence someone else. And then, and then, and then. And that's when the momentum really moves forward. And you can actually, as one individual, be a small part of moving the conscience or the beliefs or the values, the culture of an organization. You can help nurture that change. So before I wrap, I do just want to offer you a couple words of inspiration, knowing that you have the ability to do the same by stepping into your seat of choice. And the inspiration is to stay true to you and to know that no matter where you sit in your organization, you are on a throne of power. You have the power of choice to choose how you navigate, how you inspire, and how you lead through change, disruption, or any events that might be happening around you. And by stepping into that choice, choosing how you show up, you could just be inspiring and influencing major change within your organization. So if you got value from that story, if you're really pondering this idea of how you, where you sit, can actually help to change an organization, change a culture, really influence and inspire, I've got something else that I want to gift you. I want to gift you a free chapter of my best-selling book, Change Enthusiasm: How to Harness the Power of Emotion for Leadership and Success. It's this mindset, that's what I teach to clients, to individuals all over the world. And honestly, it's what I cultivated when going through that experience that I just shared the story behind. I want to share you the introductory chapter to help you learn all about change enthusiasm, how to harness the power of your emotion to step into your opportunity to choose how you show up, how you lead others through change. I want to make sure you have the data, the research, and the insights to successfully fuel your growth through even your greatest change challenges. I'm Cassandra Worthy, and until next time, keep growing and keep rocking.